This is directed to both of you. The United States has retained a number of excess intercontinental ballistic missiles and component parts. Current law permits these ICBMs to be converted for government use as space launch vehicles, but only if certain conditions are met. Current law does not permit these ICBMs or their component parts to be converted to commercial launch vehicles. Recently in Space News, we saw dueling op-eds written by George Whitesides of Virgin Galactic and Scott Lair of Orbital ATK regarding how changing the current rules to allow excess ICBM motors to be used for commercial launches would impact America's space industry. Lair says that U.S. companies are losing small satellite launches to international competitors, specifically Russia, because of these restrictions. Whitesides argues that allowing excess government ICBMs to be used for commercial launches would undermine the nascent U.S. small satellite launch services industry, which has heavily invested in the development of new launch vehicles. What would be the advantages and disadvantages of amending the law to permit wider use of excess ICBMs for commercial space launch? Mr. Pulham or Mr. Stallmer, who wants to go first?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you note, this is a fairly recent and highly contentious issue. At the aforementioned Space Symposium last week, I had a considerable amount of lobbying from both sides of the issues from many of our member companies, and there is a disparity of opinion. The Space Foundation has always prided itself on being a consensus-based organization. When we put together our pioneering report that Congressman Bridenstine has incorporated in his American Space Renaissance Act, and we took a year to do that, so that we could address all the concerns and make sure that what we came forward with was something that the entire space community would rally behind and benefit from. And similarly, the white paper recently on ensuring U.S. leadership in space, bringing 14 organizations and taking about 7 months to write what's essentially a 3-page paper. Our view right now is there is not consensus on this issue, and so we really are not going to take a stand one way or another. I think that the ideas need to play themselves out in the marketplace. I'm not a believer in the no-win scenario or the zero-sum game. I think that there is probably a path forward for consensus, but that will take some time.
Mr. Stallmer.
I will take the path of the choices, the advantages or disadvantages. I'll lean to the disadvantages first. Flooding the market with cheap government motors would certainly tilt the playing field from the commercial industry. There's many companies out there that have invested a significant amount of private sector investment in developing a marketplace, developing vehicles to address this very market that we're talking about. The longstanding government policy, which has been around for 30 years, several different administrations, is sound policy. We saw the effects that it had of the government in the marketplace during the shuttle era when the government was launching commercial payloads. In 1980, the United States had 100% of the commercial launch market. By, I believe, 2010, we had 0% of the commercial launch market. So it's a dangerous precedent to go down, and there's a lot of different reasons, not just the cost. It stunts innovation. We have companies out there in Texas, in California, all over the world, probably in every state that is represented here on the dais, that are developing innovative technologies. And I think a step back in this direction would be a tremendous, one, it would send a message in innovation, and it would send a tremendous message to the investment community on whether government policies should be adhered to or followed as we move forward. A lot has been said on the type of these vehicles and the cost savings to the Air Force. As we look at it, it's very difficult to find that cost savings that the Air Force is looking for. And Mr. Congressman Vesey, I apologize on the delay on the testimony. As we mentioned, we were both out, Elliott, in a much greater fashion at the Space Symposium, where we worked extensively with meetings with many of the different companies that are involved on this issue, and also where the Air Force stands on this issue. And that's also a very difficult position to find at times. You can talk to some of the most senior members of the Air Force that have no opinion or no knowledge of this issue on Tuesday, and on Thursday, the Air Force is coming out and saying, you know, maybe we should evaluate this, and there could be a sweet spot, but we don't want to upset the apple cart with the commercial sector. As far as the tax savings goes, a lot of it comes down, what is said, it's the surveillance and monitoring and maintenance of this fleet of ICBMs. There's over 900 of these potential missiles that the Air Force is safeguarding, monitoring, and surveilling. If you just perhaps say that we're going to give 50 of these motors to the commercial marketplace, you still have 850 of these motors that you have to surveil and monitor and watch and everything. If you rent storage space, and just because you take some items out of the storage space, you still have to pay for that storage space. And also, this is a sunk cost that the taxpayers have paid for their intended purposes. So there's a lot of concern with this and how it could disrupt the marketplace, it can disrupt the private sector investment. I certainly see it, and the debate back and forth has been tremendously cordial with the companies that are involved and thoughtful. And for my companies, we represent most all of the spaceports in the U.S. We have over 10 spaceports that we represent. And I see the concern that they have, because the spaceports, to stay in business, you need to be launching vehicles. And I am all for that, and I want to see them grow. I want to see other U.S. launch companies grow. But I think if you shut off the capital investment by tilting the playing field, it'll certainly impact on other launch companies and limit the amount of launch companies that could be launching at these spaceports. So I apologize for the long answer on that.
Okay, sir, thank you. Okay, now I'd like to call on the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Vesey.
Thank you,